We are now live. Hello, my name is Katie Payton, and my group mates and I are here to present our debate on the service delivery for transitioned age youth and adults, empowerment versus care. This will be an informal debate. I will be taking the role of introducer and researcher for the empowerment side. Catherine Kittner will be the summarizer and illustrator for the empowerment side. Amanda Haney will be the researcher for the care side. And Kayla Midget will be the summarizer and illustrator for the care side. We hope you enjoyed the presentation. When a student with disabilities reaches the age of 16 to 22, their lives are forever changed. They reach a point of transition from the safety of a school system and the services it provides, along with their families, caregivers, BCBA, and support system. They have reached a point where they and their families are faced with the choice of how they wish to pursue this transition to the future. This debate will present arguments about whether or not individuals would be better served through care, providing for these individuals so they have their needs met, or allowing them to experience risk and choices in order to allow them to grow and flourish. It will also discuss some of the availability of different types of services and the availability of funding, and how these issues relate to the ethical compliance codes of the BCBAs and the core principles of the field.
So, discussing individuals served, the Americans with Disabilities Act defines the transition process as specifically targeting children and young adults ages 16 to 21. The ADA ensures that persons with special needs are entitled to equal opportunities when it comes to employment options and participation, and employers are prohibited from discriminating based on a disability. This means that any individual between the ages of 16 and 21 are affected by this issue. The age group is on the brink of adulthood, and services in transition out of school systems and what happens next must be addressed.
According to IDEIA of 2004, the transition process, or aging out, of public school services should begin at the age of 16, and it should incorporate additional instruction, practice, and access to additional resources to prepare them for independent living and community involvement to the appropriate extent. A study conducted by Rue and Associates in 2013 found that gainful employment for individuals with special needs was available if provided with proper training and support. As a BCBA, we should be working with individuals and their support teams to ensure that the needed training is being provided so that these individuals are successful in their jobs.
Well, that is a good point. Let's also consider that it has been recommended that adults who have severe mental handicaps, who are not capable of functioning independently, even given the most simple tasks, may not be in a position to pursue a career, further their education, or live independently, due to the complexity of demands that is required for successful task completion that is often increased for those with neurological disorders. While empowerment is a great model, it is sometimes not suitable for all individuals. Consider for a moment those individuals who are unable to communicate to us their basic needs, wants, and desires, even after many years of therapy. Although these cases are rare, they are not unheard of, and we must consider every possible scenario when making ethical decisions. It is important to keep in mind that these extremely low-functioning individuals may not be truly empowered by the empowerment model because they do not function at a high enough level to make even the most basic choices for themselves. This is not to say that they don't have rights or wants, but they have no way of expressing those to us. It is up to their families or care providers to make these daily decisions for them. These decisions may include what they are going to eat for dinner, how much TV time they are going to be allowed each day, and what goals should be included in the individualized education plan, or IEP. When making these decisions, it is important that parents or caregivers use their best judgment about what is best for the disabled individual, follow ethical guidelines to the best of their ability, and be hypervigilant about any attempts the disabled individual makes to communicate their desires. Therefore, the care model is recommended for those who have an extremely poor chance of having a successful transition into adulthood. As a BCBA, we need to adhere to our core ethical principle to do no harm. It is important to remember that those with a mental disability often have other neurological, developmental, or severe cases with pause ever walk, or talk, or complete a complete sentence. Sadly, sometimes
A study conducted by Wells, Sanford, and Hogan in 2003 estimated that 40% of adults with disabilities who had been enrolled in the special education program were single, living at home, and not involved with education or gainful employment. Harris and Gabriel in 2000 found that one reason that individuals may not be successful in the work environment is because it's nearly impossible for them to control their behavior, emotional, or social symptoms at work. Showing symptoms at work is oftentimes ground for an employee with a mental health disorder to be released from their employment, as it often leads to loss of productivity, increased absenteeism, increased accidents, decreased employee performance, and staff turnover. Furthermore, lack of understanding on the part of the employers and lack of effective, accessible vocational rehabilitation course counseling services are barriers for regular employment for many adults with mental disabilities. This lack of understanding is present in a study by Dyke and Associates, where they found that parents described issues of waiting months for employment and then finding only part-time work. Additionally, this posed the threat of insecurity of that work. A parent from this study made the following statement about employment for her child. There are other problems with open employment apart from its health, like people losing interest. And then one day, Harry spent the whole day walking around polls because the person who was his supervisor wasn't there, further suggesting that perhaps the work environment may not be suitable for those with disabilities.
I think that Kayla and Amanda make a good argument, and Harry's case is unfortunate. But Compliance Code 4.10 specifically states that the BCBA should strive to recommend and implement the least restrictive course of treatment in order for the individual to be successful. And individuals are found to be able to sustain gainful employment with the proper supports. So ethically, we should be supporting clients in participating in the most integrated setting possible.
That's a good point, Catherine. And another consideration is that families of these individuals might also be considered the individuals served or the clients that we as the BCBA work with. The family members have an investment in the well-being of these individuals as well. An article by Milgore and Associates in 2007 reported that as the years progressed, the family's idea about whether or not their loved ones with disabilities should remain in sheltered care and work facilities versus participating in integrated employment has systematically altered. Back in the 70s, families preferred the sheltered environment when they believed that their loved ones were not capable of making choices for themselves. That being said, after a 5-year longitudinal study, family members of individuals who had been employed and remained employed in an integrated market were 100% for the integration system, which would be the least restrictive environment. The following video actually shows a mother discussing her son's employment and the changes and gains that she has seen from him since transitioning out of high school and obtaining a job that matched his specific skill set. This video highlights the importance of employment for the individuals we serve and how empowering employment can be.
Is huge. Once Van began to actually work and go on the metro and do all that on his own, something happened in his personality that I feel like he has grown so much more from being in the workplace, on the job site, like anybody else.
Dan cleans a wheelchair.
We're not going to be around forever. He needs to be independent, or he needs to be in systems that are going to allow him to be as independent as he can be. And so that's what our job is. Our job is not to make sure he's okay now. Our job is to make sure he's okay tomorrow. The most important thing is to look at your child for who he is. You're never going to know unless you let go. There's so much more that these young people can offer. It's a matter of taking that risk. So not only do we as the parents have to take that risk and let go, the employer, the employer has to see what benefit these people can give you. Because the potential is huge. You can't.
So, as you can see, no matter what the individual's abilities are or the types of services that the individuals on their support team are seeking, one of the primary concerns after aging out of high school is what exactly is available out there. But if you find the right resources, they can be a huge positive impact on the individual's lives.
A barrier to availability is that resources fade when it is needed most. Resources during the transition years for the mentally disabled become scarce and completely disappear at age 21. This is referred to as aging out or falling off the cliff, leaving families financially responsible for their child's future, according to ARGI in a study conducted in 2012. This begs the question, who is going to pay for these services? Many families find themselves trapped between a rock and a hard place when they are faced with the nearly impossible decision as to whether to sink themselves into enormous debt that they may never be able to pay off, or to watch their child go without the services they so desperately need and deserve. One option for families may be center-based programs. Center-based programs can offer an array of engaging activities to help individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities reach their goals, allow them to enjoy their daily activities, and be included in their communities, including those with the complex medical needs. At many center-based program facilities, a team is developed to work with the individual and their families to create an individualized service plan, or ISP. An ISP team discusses and determines goals and appropriate supports that are necessary to help the disabled individual achieve these goals. There are many options available for individuals who require a center-based program. There are day supports, vocational habilitation, and a combination of these two can also be utilized. Day programs would be most appropriate for those individuals with severe mental disabilities, especially if they have comorbid physical disabilities as well, as day programs often utilize a hands-on approach that incorporates structured learning and fun to help individuals reach their personal goals. However, it is important that staff are familiar with each client's ISP goals and make every effort to work toward meeting them. It is also imperative that data is collected on each goal in accordance with the Ethical Code 3.01b.
In a study done by Dyke and Associates in 2013, it was found that parents of those with severe mental disabilities who ruled against sending their children to work or furthering their education had the option to enroll their son or daughter into a center-based program or community-based center. However, these programs are not free, as most of their children had aged out of receiving funding through IDEA or other agencies. To those families who cannot afford these options, it seemed the only option for them was to have one, both, or another family member stay at home and care for the child who is unable to function independently or unsupervised. In a survey done by Davis in 2009 of 215 parents, almost half of them stated that one parent had to leave their job to take care of their son or daughter. One parent even stated mother had to resign from a $60,000 per year job to assist.
Well, Amanda and Kayla bring up a really good point regarding funding. Real life, various resources are available to family members of individuals with special needs. Friedman and Capobianco-Boyer outline some of these supports, and they include services such as respite services, home health care, family education and training, support groups, or they can offer resources that are related to financial assistance.
These services and types of supports offer families some freedom and peace of mind when it comes to the everyday struggles of caring for an individual with disabilities. Parents reported that with the availability of these resources, it gave them the sense of empowerment and helped them feel like they had significant power in making the best decision for their child. They also reported that it made them feel as though they were able to individualize their child's plans and supports rather than using a cookie-cutter method. Another benefit to these supports was that the caregivers and families did not feel that out-of-home placement for their children was the only option if the individual and family chose to remain at home.
Thank you, Katie. And federally mandated programs have been designated to assist the individual with special needs. And these include Centers for Independent Living, which encourage living outside the home with proper supports, state departments of disabilities, and state council of disability services.
That's another good point, Catherine. Actually, in a study done by Oswald and Associates in 2013, it showed that parents who utilize these services and stay connected with the healthcare system during the transition process are more likely to be successful through the entire transition.
Although day facilities or community-based centers are a great option, there are some major concerns regarding their availability. According to Dyke & Associates, regardless of cost, many small rural towns do not currently have such options available to them. There is a shortage of mental health professionals in the United States, and the situation is particularly dire in rural and underserved parts of the nation. Many families would have to commute long distances to drop off and pick up their child, making community-based centers less feasible and sometimes unattainable for families to utilize. Additionally, the loss of access to specific services such as occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, or ABA therapy poses a serious threat, as these therapies are often a necessity for those with special needs. This is why community-based programs, as scarce as they may be, focus on personal safety, sensory development, and vocational skills to make up for the loss of occupational therapy. They also focus on independent living skills and offer positive behavioral supports to counterbalance the loss of ABA therapy. They focus on communication skills to make up for the loss of speech therapy. They offer mobility training to address goals that would have been targeted in physical therapy. It is evident that there are still some major kinks to be worked out concerning the resources available to those who have severe mental disabilities.
Adding to what Kayla said, a study by Dyke and Associates in 2013 concluded that once they reach adulthood, these individuals are very likely to lose speech, OT, PT, and ABA. In the same study, parents reported that without these services, their child lost skills that they had previously, and the lack of those trained to help gain those skills back. A mother of a young adult with Rett syndrome discussed her frustration in this study regarding her daughter's regression after working so hard in high school with OT, PT, and speech services, and then how she lost them once she lost those services. The mother states, "It was all a waste of time because as soon as you get to adult services, none of it is used or rarely used, so they lose all those skills." So as you can see, this shows that the resources of these particular clients need significant refinement if these individuals are going to be able to continue to make progress.
So as you can see, one of the biggest considerations with not only the availability of services will also be how the individuals will access these services and the funding that's needed for them. So we'll discuss that next.
Funding takes many different forms. When an individual with disabilities has a job or continues with education, it is the parent's responsibility to provide transportation and be on call for the hours the child needs to be picked up or dropped off. Additionally, parents are faced with the future of no health insurance for their child. At the age of 26, children, according to the United States Department of Labor, can no longer be under their parents' health insurance. That in and of itself is a huge issue. As the child enters adulthood, services and their therapies are often cut off. It creates a major problem for families who cannot afford to pay for therapies out of pocket. Few resources are available to those with disabilities after the age of 21. In many states, Medicaid waiver programs are available to families with intellectual disabilities based on financial need. The waiver system, however, operates on a first-come, first-served basis. Because of this lack of funding, many families needing help don't get it.
While these individuals are faced with no longer receiving services like occupational therapy, speech, physical therapy, and ABA, that doesn't mean that they still do not need them. These services are still needed despite their age, and as stated in the Behavior Guideline 2.09, clients have a right to effective treatment. With the end of health insurance, older children may qualify for Medicaid and/or Medicare. In most states, there are limits to the services young adults can receive. However, Medicaid does help cover the cost of adult day services for severely disabled. For this reason, parents often opt for adult day services for their child instead of a job or school.
Well, Amanda and Kayla bring up a really valid point, and this kind of issue is something that as behavior analysts we're going to have to deal with. Behavior analysts have an obligation to ensure that the services that are provided are using fees that are consistent with the law and provide services that are predetermined and which outline the scope of services, and that's referencing Compliance Code 2.12. One of the main arguments against community-based services is the availability of funding, and concerns over there being adequate resources to provide the needed supports and services in community-based settings. While this is a concern, many states have begun to make the transition to providing more inclusive settings. And research in these areas has shown that it is in fact less expensive to serve an adult in the community than it is in an institutionalized setting.
That's right, Catherine. Based on data compiled by the National Council on Disability, the average cost of caring for an individual in an institution was $188,318 in 2009. This is compared to the average cost of care in a Medicaid facility, a Medicaid-funded home and community-based service, which was $42,486. As the federal government moves to ensure that services are being provided in the most inclusive setting possible, it is the responsibility of a BCBA to provide those services which will allow the individuals to learn skills to be in a more successful setting and empower the individuals to believe they can be successful in these settings in accordance with our ethical codes. As you can see from this next image, the states that still operate institutions in 2009 and reported the cost of care, all of them demonstrated a lower cost of care in the community-based settings than in institutionalized ones. To further help demonstrate this impact of transitioning on an individual's lives, we kind of want to show you a picture of an individual who has transitioned. This is Rosalind. In this photo, Rosalind is enjoying her 59th birthday with her family in her community living home in Baltimore, Maryland. Before living in this home with her family, her and her family made the difficult decision to institutionalize Rosalind at the age of 8 when she was beginning to demonstrate behavioral concerns at school. And her parents were afraid of her for her future. At the time, the Rosewood Institution was the only option for Rosalind and her family. When the state of Maryland closed Rosewood, Rosalind transitioned to a new home, and she reported that she was happy where she is. She says, quote, "I love my freedom," she exclaimed in her typically outspoken way, "and I love having my family around me." Rosalind describes her newfound freedom to choose when she can watch Roadrunner cartoons or listen to soul music, how she can decorate her room, and where to go on weekends. So while the dollar store and the park are her favorite places to go, a ride in the car to look at the lights also makes her very happy. Rosalind's family also stated that while it was a scary idea for her to transition after the years in Rosewood, the change has been the best thing that has happened to Rosalind and her family. So as you can see from Rosalind's story, as well as others that were in the What's Possible publication produced to demonstrate what life is like after institutionalization, it shows just how important and successful individuals can be when provided with the tools to be empowered to make choices. Individuals, along with their parents and caregivers, case managers, and other supports, work together to decide on a course of action in which they believe will benefit their individual with special needs the most. The transition process is daunting, and stakeholders are concerned for the well-being and future of the individuals they support. These decisions can only be made by asking questions, examining the research, and looking at all of the pros and cons of integrating to a mainstream society or utilizing facilities that would better suit these individuals' needs. The goal of this decision should be to empower these individuals to lead lives that are self-determined, having the ability to make choices on how they live their lives, and be provided with the support they need in order to achieve their goals. This ability to learn and grow is what the transition process is about, and where the direction of services for individuals with disabilities is heading. That is our debate. We will move forward with a question and answer period. We do have some questions. So we can move forward with our question and answer period. The first question will be for you, Kayla. We'll start with you.
Okay.
And it's, should individuals with mental disabilities be empowered to further their education?
Individuals with mental health concerns are more likely to drop out of school or fail his or her grade than any other disability group. As a BCBA, it is in our ethical code not only to protect our clients from harm, which is Ethical Code 10.01, but to make recommendations that are based solely on the best interests of our clients, as stated in Article 2.04 of the code. If a BCBA does not believe that a transition-age client will be successful in post-secondary education, such as college or universities, he or she should make the recommendation that the client either stay at home, attend a sitter, a day center, or attend a transition program designed for transition-aged adults with disabilities, according to Goldstein.
All right. Thank you, Kayla. Catherine, I just wanted to see if you had anything that you wanted to add to that about whether or not individuals with disabilities should be empowered to further their education from the empowerment side.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Katie. While those are good alternatives to attending college or university, the BCBA, can make recommendations during the transition process, which should begin at age 16, while the client is still in school and preparing to transition out. Schools and programs ideally would have the ability to provide vocational training, life skills, and in this can promote a vocational track and assist individuals in becoming contributing members of society. Employment and community interactions are good alternatives if the BCBA does not believe that the individual will be successful in a post-education site.
All right, thank you, Catherine. All right, the next question is, why would an integrated care setting be more beneficial than facility-based services or inpatient long-term treatment for those with significant disabilities? Or, you know, if it does. So I'll start this one. Research has actually shown that overutilization of inpatient care can have negative long-term effects on the individual. One longitudinal study found that extended stays in inpatient facilities can lead to problems in school enrollment, romantic relationships, social networking, or living independently. Parents of individuals with special needs have indicated that they think that the ability of resources to help them feel that they have the choice in development and plans in their habilitation for your child has helped alleviate some of this need. And that another benefit to these supports was that it's given caregivers and families, they didn't feel like they needed to put out-of-home placement for their child as the only option. Amanda, do you think that there, you know, that it might be more beneficial from the care side to have some long-term care treatment options?
Parents often decide on a care facility because they are aware of their own age and want to make sure the child is looked at after they are gone and pass away according to Dykes. Having a severely disabled child move to a facility provides both the parents and the child a sense of they'll know what the future is going to hold, a sense of safety.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so the last question that we have is, what impact does school have on a disabled child's future? And if somebody from the care side would like to take that question first. So what impact does school have on the disabled child's future?
I'll take that one. Schools do not do enough to teach the students how to make choices. For example, in the school that I work, some of our students can go out for extra classes, but they don't choose the class. The teacher chooses the class, and the parents choose the class. So we haven't taught them how to make choices. And when they're out in the real world, if they don't know how to make choices, they may decide to spend the whole day watching TV instead of going to work.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. Catherine, do you have anything to say in response to that question of, what impact does the school have on the disabled child's future?
Yes, thanks. Under the current regulations, schools are to start the transition process when the student reaches the ages between 14 and 16. And the student is supposed to be part of the process. And unfortunately, that might not happen everywhere, and that's a difficulty that we as behavior analysts are going to have to face. Schools are supposed to provide job skill training and opportunities to gain independence, making choices, taking risks in the real world through on-site job coaching, life skills classes, and learning how to fill out applications and things like that.
All right. Perfect. Thank you so much. That looks to be the end of our questions. So I will now, if anybody would like to find any more information on any of the things that we have discussed today, this are our list of references that we use both in our debate today as well as in our paper that we wrote earlier. If you have any more questions or want some more information, you feel free to take a look at these references. And then you can also contact anybody in this group to ask any questions, or if you would like these resources for yourself, we'd be happy to send those to you. So we hope that you all enjoyed the presentation and that you got some information out of it. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to contact us. Thank you very much and have a good night.